Hello again, and in our ever-ending quest for new light, or I should say better light, we are in a different room. This is the top floor turret. As you can see, the walls sort of go up, kind of this cool chandelier on top, up to the peak. Anyway, hopefully we're loud enough. So today we wanted to relate a story on the other side of the effects of disfellowshipping, because last time we talked about a situation where an individual commits suicide because of the date only in the Lord and the threats of the disfellowshipping arrangement. But this time we want to say it from the other side of it, from an elder's perspective, if you will. Well, I guess we're not giving his perspective from what happened with his situation.
It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
It is.
So you want to start?
We don't want to share too many details of it. It is, we want to give the family as much respect and dignity for the situation as it is. I don't know how to start. There was a brother that we knew.
Yep, there was a brother from one congregation and a sister from another congregation.
Yeah, that's right.
And both were elders, children
of elders.
And they were going to the girls' congregation. So they were in different towns, obviously. And they'd gotten together and gotten into some trouble. But they were serious towards one another as well. So they were engaged. At this point, it comes to the elders' attention through themselves. I don't know if I remember right, if it was through someone else. Either way.
Like a confession or something, you mean? Or
well, however it comes to their attention. Yeah, I don't know if it was them feeling a guilty conscience, so they went to the elders to clarify this, or if somebody else mentioned it to them. I don't remember how that all transpired. But to make the long story short, the male was disfellowshipped because they met with him separately because they're not married. The male's disfellowshipped, and when they meet with the female, they basically, and got to remember, that's her dad's congregation. When they meet with the female, they tell her, if you break it off with this guy, then we'll not disfellowship you. I'm not sure how that plays into repentance in any way, shape, or form, because you could say, well, maybe the situation was she went to the elders, and then, she was the one that was more repentant than he was, if that was the case. I don't know, like I'm saying. I don't remember the exact details. But that would have no bearing on whether or not you're repentant if you break off this relationship. Either you are, because you came forward, or you're not because you didn't come forward, whatever else. It wouldn't have the case. So it shows the manipulation that goes into who you will or you won't marry inside the congregation. And mind you, these are both adults at this time.
This is politics.
Right. And we went through that when we were dating as well. When we were engaged as well, because we never went through, again, a dating per se. We seriously got to know each other, and that was it. No games, no going to the movies, no whatever else. It was just a serious questionings of how we wanted our futures to go, and our involvement towards each other in that. Mm-hmm. So when I was sitting down with an elder, her uncle, in the congregation, in her congregation, because we went over there to visit, it's interesting the way the conversation went. And this is pertinent, and I don't mean to slam him in any way, although I do not think this is correct at all, and the questionings that I bring up here will show that. But I tell an illustration in that meeting that I had with him and other elder about myself as a child and my grandmother. And my grandmother, I was outside of her house one day, and I was taking the training wheels off my bicycle. And she comes in and she's like, "What are you doing, Chad?" And I'm like, I'm taking my training wheels off. Whatever reasoning I had at that moment, whether I just wanted to be a little more free in my ride, or whether they were hindering me because I couldn't make corners. I don't remember the exact specifics, but I was taking them off. and I didn't relate to her why it was. And she proceeded to try to reason with me on why maybe that's not a good idea. I'm not really old enough, or maybe I don't have enough balance yet, or whatever else. But I was already bound and determined. I mean, I already had one partially off and whatever else. So as she continued to reason with me, I'm sure she took her groceries back in or whatever it was she was doing, and she came back out and proceeded to try to reason with me some more. And in any case, she was no doubt reasoning with me even as I was taking off those training wheels. But when I get done, I'm going outside the fence and I'm going to ride this bicycle. Now, my grandmother has two choices she can make at this point. She can say, well, I recommended you don't do this, and so I'm not going to be a part of this at all. And she can go back inside. Or she can do what she did. The one was a controlling thing, which she doesn't do. She was a very good woman, I'll say this. And from my recollection. So we go outside the fence, and she continues with reasoning with me. Are you sure you want to do this and whatever else? I'm bound and determined. I get on my bicycle. I start pedaling. She helps me as I go along, and with my grandmother's success, I wobble along and ride my bicycle.
Without training wheels.
And without the training wheels. And it's like, oh, Grandma, I'm doing it. And she's like, yeah, you are. So with my grandmother's help, I was able to succeed. So the point is pretty obvious there. Well, her uncle at that point says, well, how's this fit into your illustration? When I was a child growing up, I didn't need training wheels. And I said, that fits perfect. Tiffany doesn't need your training wheels. And you can see that his face just got angry right off the bat. But that was the point. The training wheels, though they had a purpose, even though you may have had training wheels, there comes a point where they're not useful anymore. And as we said in the previous video, at 17, if you don't have them figured out by then, how much time you think you got left? You better have already done it by then, or you might want to just be like my grandmother and go, you know what, you're bound and determined to do this, so I might as well help you make a success of it.
Right.
Instead of not doing anything at all, then I may have been resentful for my grandmother. I'm not going to come back to my grandmother and go, oh, Grandmama, you were so right. That's not what's going to happen. I may be resentful because she tried to stop me and didn't help me at all. So this situation with this family dynamic and this relationship that was transpiring is very similar to that.
So to recap the situation with her is she met with the elders, and the elders had told her, break it off with this guy and we won't disfellowship you. You'll just be put on, public reproof. And she said, no, I'm not going to do that. I love him. We're going to get married. And they did get married, and she was disfellowshipped.
So they're continuing to go to meetings. I don't remember if they took a little break or not. I don't think they did, if I recall. In any case, they're going to meetings, and eventually they send in, after 6 months or whatever it is, I think is the minimum, so we know that much time elapsed, they send in a reinstatement letter. And they reject it. So more time goes by, and they just feel like, oh, what are we doing this for? Because this is just a joke. Playing these games, this jumping through hoops and whatever else. So they just quit going.
And I remember just, I don't know if this detail is pertinent to it, but I just remember, while you're disfellowshipped and you are going to the meetings and they're shunning you at the hall, just some of the, how word gets around, like, things could have been different for them. Things could have been different for her if she would have just broke it off. And there was one sister in particular that told me that there was some looks and things said that were really mean. And so it was like, well, why would I, kind of that same time period, like, why would I want to come back when there's these shunning and these things being said behind my back?
There's a difference between loving correction and judgy.
Yeah.
And that's what it ends up being, is judgy, not loving correction. Because again, I've had friends that were disfellowshipped for something they knew they did wrong, and I did not want to hang out with them while that was going on. And when they repented of that course, then I resumed association with them. And quite honestly, that doesn't matter if they're disfellowshipped or not. We all have a choice of who we are going to associate with. it's sort of funny. People will knock disfellowshipping. It's so hilarious, especially when they're in Christendom. When we first started videos, I remember saying somebody, I think it was about Trinity, and they were saying, well, if you don't accept the Trinity, I'm going to unsubscribe to you. You mean disfellowship me? I think we've already gone through that to the nth degree that I'm going to let somebody else dictate to me what it is I'm going to accept based on our relative association where I barely know somebody who makes comments. I could care less about that venue as far as this goes. We do this to help other people, not because we want views or something. So anyway, I just thought that was pretty humorous. But we all choose who our association is going to be and what we feel is damaging to us. Anyway, but the forced judginess and then those looks or those comments or whatever else, along with the shunning, ends up having a pressure not only on those individuals, but also their families. And this is kind of the untold side of that. I shouldn't say untold, but the not as talked about side of this. Mm-hmm. So they quit going to meetings, and after a few months, it's like they're not coming back.
Yeah.
And
they've been treated really bad.
Yep, and they're like, this has nothing to do with. I mean, what's they always like to brag
Where's the
about.
Love?
That's right. They always like to brag about John. What is that? 13:45.
John 13:35.
35. Yeah. You will know you're my disciples because of the love among you. And it's like when you experience that that's not it, then forget it. And I remember that going in. Somebody asked me, well, why did you become a witness? Oh, John. 13:35? Yeah. No, because I said John. And they go 13:35. No, 4:23 and 24. That's why I associated with witnesses, is because I thought you had more truth than the other religions that I know of. So that's why I was associating with you. Anyway, get back to the story. Mm-hmm. They're not coming back. It becomes pretty obvious. And the elder, her dad, commits suicide. And they were pretty well known in the community. There was a write-up in the paper and whatever else. So it was a pretty big deal as far as that goes, and not a very good witness mm-hmm. for witnesses. And naturally, they blamed those that were disfellowshipped. Mm-hmm. Well, instead of blaming the religion that required you to treat them like crap. And they didn't, again, they were repentant over what they'd done. So that whole judgy thing, in deciding that we're going to dictate what you do and how you run your life, and if you don't listen to us, then we're going to disfellowship you. And so often the case, that's the political power struggle that happens inside the congregation. We are, just like the Pharisees, I love that Learn From Me article. Look at how the Pharisees acted. Just type it in, Watchtower Library, Learn From Me, and it peg holes the Pharisees and how they acted, and really nails down the way elders act in the congregation. Not only will you do what the scriptures say, but you will interpret or look at our Talmud, our interpretation, and how we see that should be done to fulfill that scripture. And if you don't do it the way we see it should be fulfilled, we're going to disfellowship you.
We should do a video on that.
Yeah, that whole article actually it's an excellent article. It really mm-hmm. is.
There was definitely some apostate underground working in Watchtower because it peg holes him so well.
They say that stuff all the time though, but they brush it off as applying to Christendom.
Yeah.
So you can say that stuff all day long, and it's just like, and we need to go through our disfellowshipping as well, because quite honestly, when we've got a 30-page letter, and what we should do is just read through that 30-page letter, because in that letter we relate what happened, what built up to our disfellowshipping, the disfellowshipping we went through, and the appeal process, all in that letter. So we'd cover the whole thing as we went through, but it totally reminds me of the one thing that you did in there when what you said there. What did you say again?
What did I say?
I don't know. I went off a long tangent.
Yeah, you kind of did. Was it about the doing the video on the Learn From Me?
Yeah, and then it was after that.
We should do a video on that, I said.
Yeah.
Because I said there's an apostate working underground. in Watchtower writing those articles.
Yeah, and I talked about how that
I
they'll
don't
say
know what
that
else
and they'll
I
pass
said.
it off on Christendom. Oh, your comment, because in that whole scenario, one of the things that started all off, or at least that exposed that they were
Mm-hmm.
after us, is her comment, where she just made a comment in general, which
At a meeting, yeah.
would be totally, you'd say that anywhere and it wouldn't be a big deal because it's absolutely true. Um, Yet they twisted it all around as to apply to them when even that isn't what she meant. And anyway, they don't like fingers pointing at them, even though that's not what she was
They
doing.
don't like critics.
Yeah.
They don't like critics.
So that's just the dangers as far as that goes. That's people don't talk about, is because people inside as well know that this person is dead to them. It's just not Christ-like.
The one that's disfellowshipped, you're saying, is
That's right.
The one that's dead to them. Yeah.
Yep. And so,
But here
this
they are
father,
coming back.
and what,
trying
I'm
to-
all for quoting Jesus where he says, look, because the apostles come to him and say, look, your mother and your brother's at the door. And he says, look, my mother and my brothers are the ones who do the will of my Father.
Mhm.
Did that mean that he was shunning his mother and his brothers at that point? Because you have to remember, at that point, they were opposed to what he was doing. Both his mother and his brothers. They were coming to get him because he's lost his mind. This guy's cuckoo. We need to go get him. So they were apostates, if you will. Misguided. Maybe that's a stretch. But they were against God's will at that moment. He was carrying out a ministry. They were opposed to that ministry. That makes them, by definition, apostate. That's apostate thinking. But he didn't shun them because of that. They needed to repent from that and turn around. So it was interesting, the dynamics and the twist that goes on there. So I'm all for, look, the ones who are doing the will of my Father, those ones are my mother and my brothers. But at the same time, he didn't treat them like the Pharisees treated the other apostates, Samaritans.
Mhm.
The Samaritans go back to the 10-tribe kingdom. That's why they set up the high places. The woman at the well was a Samaritan when she was asking Jesus about worshiping with spirit and truth. She was an apostate. And yet Jesus told his disciples not to go to anyone but the lost sheep of Israel, because of their lineage being Israelites, linked back to the separation of the 10-tribe kingdom from Judah. He was still fulfilling that point, going to the lost sheep of Israel. It included those Samaritans. Because he said, don't go to the Gentiles yet. Only the lost sheep of Israel. So it's interesting when you consider all those whole dynamics, and yet the Pharisees were shunning them as apostates. How are witnesses not doing that same thing now?
But you think about that scenario, going back to that scenario with that girl and her dad committing suicide, and then the congregation and some of the family blaming her. I mean, can you imagine the guilt you would feel? You already feel bad enough for the sin you committed and then you've repented or whatever. But now you're being blamed for something you didn't. It's just.
And then not to mention the stress that you're putting on their marriage.
Yeah.
So here you put added stress. So again, that'd be like my grandmother going out there and belittling me, chastising me for taking my training wheels off. It's my life. If I want to ride my bicycle without training wheels, help me or get out of the way. And my grandmother chose to help me. They berate you. They berate you for not doing it their way, which is not God's way. Again, it's not about Scripture. It's about all their rules that make it burdensome.
Yeah.
It's all their rules. So anything else you want to add to that? Or?
So we just wanted to bring out that situation of what extreme shunning can do. Kind of the other side of the story. We always hear the side of, I don't want to call them victims, but
the disfellowshipped
Watchtower, disfellowshipped, yeah.
They're the ones who make videos.
Yeah.
Nobody from the other side of it, unless they're disfellowshipped or whatever, talks about those things.
Yeah, so. And we'll never get to hear the side of the elder because he's no longer living. But you can imagine the kind of guilt he would have felt. He must have been in horrible mental anguish in order to do something like that. So.
And I remember I talked to an elder at our hall about that, just hearing that he commits suicide. And I didn't, but before I even knew anything about the whole situation. And that elder said, well, you never know the pain that somebody's going through,
And
caused by the society and what you're.
Yeah, and then when that that elder was telling you about this elder that had committed suicide, sort of like, oh, he had mental anguish and like depression issues, and he had trouble with his back, and sort of passing the buck on to something else. And then later on, when things were revealed to us, it was like that wasn't the reason.
And it was the classic
People deal with
thing.
that stuff all the time, but that's not the reason why he committed suicide.
Yeah, and the classic thing of we're not responsible for anything. It was something else. The classic, I don't know if that's gaslighting, what you call it, but projection probably is what you'd classify that as. But it was just not what he was representing happened.
Yeah, that also upsets me, but that's for another time. So we just wanted to do that story time today again, and so enjoy the next part of our summer project on our Victorian house restoration.
So we are all finished with the ridge. I don't know if I can zoom in on that up there. Let's go up each side, and also on the dormers it's all finished as well. Take a look from back here. I think you can make out two sides if you're back here far enough. Yeah, you can kind of see that backside. A lot of smoke in the air from the west being on fire, blowing up this way.
It just started getting this way, yesterday?
Yeah. We've had a couple of good days. But if the sun was out more, it wasn't so smoky, that would be just gleaming. But
it's just subtle enough too.
Yeah, maybe we should take a look from that backside. Actually, let's walk over this way first, because you might be able to catch a little more sun as it gleams around. And you can kind of see it a little better as it starts to. But yeah, it'll be almost a blinding gleam if it's bright sun.
We'll have some sunshine soon.
As I walk around this side over here, you can you just can't quite see the gleam on it. At least even more vivid in person, but that's almost the view you get with my eyes right here as far as size looks. I don't know why a phone turns out so differently. That's from the backside. We ordered materials in, we ran out. It takes 2 weeks to get materials in, and then we'll finish the garage, which is a cakewalk comparatively. Cleanup time. So now I'm going to start building the wrought iron fence. Got some square tubing and this garden wall fencing. We're going to space it out right so it meets code. And not that it's accessed for a deck, but I want it to be sturdy enough to where if somebody does happen to lean on it, it's not going to cause any issues. I sure would hate to somebody to get hurt just because they leaned on it wrong or something. But mainly it's just ornamental, but a good parapet is a good answer when it's that high off the ground. So I'll just probably just show you when I'm done. So we're about 3/4 of the way done with this, and I made an absolutely bonehead novice mistake. As I'm welding on this side, I'm noticing, hey, wait a minute, my gap at the bottom is getting smaller. What the heck's going on? And after a couple of measurements, turns out I'd stuck this one 1.5 inches high, which means I drilled my hole off of that, and my hole was wrong. So I had to weld that up, cut this off, re-weld it down where it's supposed to be. Oh, what a pain. Now the wind's starting to pick up, so welding outside is starting to be kind of a pain in the butt. So now I gotta grind this off, bolt it back together. And at least I didn't have it too welded up. I had to cut a lot of the bolts off on the top, the welds off on the top, just to get the spread right, but not the bottom, because the bottom is going to stay the same no matter where it's at. But how frustrating. And I mean the bottom as in these posts, these slide up and down on that. Until I weld them solid. So get that done and be back to where I was. So I got the top railing all finished, and now it's disassembled. Now we just have to get it up there. Here comes fun. Okay, so one down. We got it up there, went up the 2 ladders, and it only took like 5 minutes, but let me tell you, it was a hit workout. And then, as Tiffany said, next we've got the heavy ones and spikes. So we're gonna take both light ones up first though. Number 2 done. That was outright comical. You should have been able to see that. I had my leg up in the air, laying against the roof, using my leg to push it up. I wonder if I can maybe set it on the truck over there and record this comedy.
You want to try it?
Yeah, we can.
I'm dying.
But I need to take a break first.
I am dying. I'm afraid because these ones are a little heavier.
Yeah, this is going to be lots of fun.
Ones up. The ones that were lighter, and this is going to be...
Because those ones bolt into these ones, so you've got these extra cross beams with the spikes on them.
You know what? All I have got one thing to say. We better get a good paycheck for this.
Ready? Settle on the ladder.
It's on the freaking ladder.
That's right. Settle on the rungs. One, two, three. 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 Yep. So one more. One, two, three. Lift it up. I got it. It's all right. One, two, three. I don't need you to do. One, two, three. Okay, now just come up. Go. No more now. Got it? One, two, three. Go. Come on, lift it up. Push on. One, two, three. Okay, hold that. Got it? Up. Go for it now. Try. Ready? One, two, three. Ready? Come on. Now's not the time to quit. We're almost there. One, two, three. One, two, three. Another 6 inches. One, two, three. Come on. Lay it down. Lay it down. Lay it down. Okay, get up. Wait a minute. Let's go a little bit more. Let's do a little bit more. Hurry up, because this is spiking on it. Let's go. One, two, three. Two, three. There, now come on.
Got it?
Yes. Come on, come on, come on. to go. What do you think, love?
Not a good time for me right now.
One last one to go. That's enough for showtime on that. Okay, so I haven't seen it yet, so I'll see it with you guys for the first time.
It looks so good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh my gosh. I had to take a picture and send to my friend Tiff.
Yeah, that's freaking cool.
The thing's heavy. It's heavy duty. I wouldn't be leaning against it, obviously, but
Oh, you could lean against
could.
it. It has to be, in order to coat it, you have to, it has to hold 200 pounds, and it'll easily
it'd
do that.
absolutely do that.
Yeah,
It looks great.
that's awesome. And then we've got lights to go on all of the mid posts. I'm shaking, my muscles are still so,
We gotta call
Whatever.
our realtor.
yeah. You can see with the copper gleaming a little better today too. Well, it's
Yeah.
not totally sunny, but
The clouds are hiding the sun right now.
yeah, that looks good.
Not too bad for 3 months of work, huh?
Awesome. Awesome. So,
you
we're
right
up
in the
on, you are in the sun.
No, are you blasting right in the sun?
Yeah, the sun's there.
You're supposed to not video record things with the sun in your camera.
Yeah, that's the best view. So we got it all up and installed.
It's cold right now.
That's not that bad. It's like,
It's like 50 degrees.
leaves are starting to change, and we're gonna actually get a nice transition too for once, as opposed to having a freeze that knocked all the leaves off.
Last year we had no color because we got such an early frost and snowfall.
But yeah, it turned out really well.
I am so excited to have this up here. I mean, we're not going to enjoy it very long because, I mean, it's almost winter, and I'm hoping that somebody buys this place, quite honestly, is so that they can enjoy it, you know.
You can see the river, and
So I wonder where the fire was.
there's a bunch of EMS were taken off, and they went down the highway.
Did you see which way they went when they went down?
No, they just went west that way.
Everything went out. Rural water, all their tankers, fire and rescue, everything. They weren't gone a real long time, like what, maybe an hour?
It might have been an accident.
I would think there would be an accident, yeah.
So I would say you're on one of the tallest houses in Langdon, that's for sure. And then what's interesting about this is that, you know, you're on the peak of the roof, so you're pretty much as high as anything. About the only thing higher would be the Catholic church over there, and nobody goes up into that bell tower. So, and that balcony over there is fairly high, but again, that's just the third floor. This would be floor number 4. Be a great spot. It's about 11 by 11, so we can put chairs up here or whatever.
You could put a little couch up here.
Yeah.
You could get it up here.
Yeah, there's not a big hole, but I think if we got the railing up, we could figure out the way to get a couch up.
Well, we're not going to get nothing up here because we're selling this place. But I mean, for the next person, it would have to fit in this hole.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wouldn't trust anything light to stay up here. Or, I mean, it would just get,
Yeah.
the way the wind goes,
Yeah.
oh man.
Get some cast iron.
We get some fierce wind up here.
Get some cast iron stuff up here. It's not too bad. It's sheltered at least there.
But I
and
mean,
we
if
don't
you
have.
left your furniture
Man,
down
can
here-
you imagine watching a storm roll in from that direction?
I want to. Maybe the new owners will let us. Free.
Put it in the contract.
But you gotta let us see a store when it comes. I know it'd be sweet, wouldn't it? No, I'm really, really happy with the way this turned out. I was nervous because I didn't really know. I have pretty good vision, but I wasn't sure with this.
You weren't sure I was going to be able to pull this one off, huh?
Well, I wasn't sure exactly what we were going to do because, you know, you talked about putting it up in 2 sections, pulling it up in 2 sections, and then I wasn't sure if you were going to have it completely enclosed like you have it now. I thought maybe you'd have it come into the chimney. You know, I didn't know if that was going to be something.
Nope, it totally wraps.
So nobody can get, like me, when we were doing that ridge down there, and I had to paint on this turret, or on this dormer, I mean, I had to scoot my little butt right here on this 6 or 8 inches, whatever this was. I scoot my little butt on the back of this, jump down on the ridge, and then crawl down the valley. And let me tell you, that's not a fun feeling.
And these, by the way, we'll have lights on every one of these. There's 4 on each side. I should go get those and put them on. I wonder how they'll illuminate everything
My
up
back
here.
is killing me. I need to quit working and take a break.
Yeah, this was work. It was heavy. It was heavy.
Hard. How much do you think these weigh? Of course, 2 of them are heavier than the other 2.
Man, over 100 pounds, I know that.
I'm 100 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm 104 pounds. That's what I've weighed, between 104 and 106.
I bet the whole thing probably weighs 400. But 350, 400.
I'm a heavyweight. Here I am.
Yeah.